Hi everyone, thanks for giving us the chance to share our story, our dream, and a great opportunity with you today. We're presenting on Tuko Pamoja Mkyashi.
My name is Sam Barnes, and I'm the president of Tuko Pamoja Mkyashi.
And my name is Allie Crocker, and I'm the Chief Fundraising Officer of Tuko Pamoja Mkyashi. So we're asking one thing of you today, and that is to help us help the village of Mkyashi to help itself. So in the year 2010, Sam and I traveled to the village of Mkyashi, which is located in Tanzania. We stayed there for 2 months on the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, and it was about a mile up on the mountain. While we were there, we got the opportunity to do a lot of really cool things within the village. So we learned how to make coffee, we went on some really cool hikes, explored some waterfalls, planted trees, taught English and math to some of the kids in the village, and went on some really fun adventures.
We definitely had a lot of fun, hiking and going to the waterfalls. But what really impacted us the most was the people that we met and the relationships that we made. So there's this great Maori proverb. It says, "Ask me what is the greatest thing in the world. I will reply, it is the people, it is the people, it is the people." And after this experience, we really feel like, that was so true, at least to our experience. It's sort of a cliche, that when people go, they come from America or other wealthy countries, and they visit these third world countries, and they come back and they say, "Oh, I never knew that people lived like that. I never knew. I can't believe it. So much I took for granted." And we feel like, we all know that people live like that. We all see it on TV. We see it on the internet. We read about it in newspapers. There's no getting around it. We all know it. But it's a huge difference between knowing that it exists and actually understanding it, and actually getting to know people who are dealing with a lot of these issues personally. When we were in Tanzania, we cared about these people as friends. We ate all of our meals with them. We hung out with them every day. We talked. And we really got to understand, what does it mean, not just to not have great opportunity, but to literally not even have those basic things that you need each day to get by. Muhammad Yunus, who is basically the father of microfinance and the founder of the Grameen Bank, has a great quote. He compares poor people to bonsai trees. What a bonsai tree is a normal tree and a normal seed planted in a tiny pot that actually sort of makes the tree grow really small. So he says, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, we'll post this PowerPoint so you can read it on your own, but he says, poor people are like bonsai trees. He says there's nothing wrong with their seeds, simply society never gave them the basis to grow on. And in our experience, we would talk with people in Mkyashi for a long time, kids, people our age, adults, older people, and there was definitely no shortage of brain power, no shortage of willpower, and no shortage of ability. All of these people had the ability to influence the world and to create positive change, but they just didn't have the resources, whether it was the educational resources, the material resources, anything. This time, a lot of times you just don't have time when you're trying to get by. So what we like to do is take the internal resources that are already there and try and give them a little bit of material resources to grow on.
So Friday and Oswald are 2 little guys that we got to know really well while we were in Tanzania. In the picture on the left there, they're 10 and 12 years old, and they've been growing up in the village of Mkyashi their whole lives, and they just lacked the basic resources that they needed. They didn't have access to food all the time. They didn't make it to school on a regular basis. Their father worked full-time for what little they had, and their mother wasn't in the picture. So as you can see from the picture, they're really dirty, and they got into trouble a lot, and they didn't do well in school. So when we went back in 2011, Fatty and Oswald had moved out of the village of Mkyashi and moved in with one of their aunts who had a lot more resources than they were provided with in the village of Mkyashi. So they were able to eat 3 meals a day, and they had access to education, and they had access to transportation, and as you can see in the picture on the right, they're a lot happier and healthier. They had actually grown 6 inches, and they were a lot bigger, a lot more filled out. So you can see what just some basic resources can do to change someone. Unfortunately, not everyone is that lucky. This picture is a picture of Lillian and Karen. Lillian is number 1 in her class, but unfortunately she attends a village school rather than a private school, so she doesn't have the same access to education as some of the other students. This is a picture of baby Mary. She was born in the village of Mkyashi, and we met her for the first time when we went to Tanzania in 2010. Calvini is a really great kid, but sometimes gets into trouble, and so he has the potential to be a really awesome student, but we sometimes worry about his future. Scola is a little bit luckier. We got to know Scola on a really personal level and decided to sponsor her education. So she now attends a private school outside of the village, but her family still lives in the village of Mkyashi. Here's a picture of Eno, Mary Stephanie, Haika, Christiani, Jessica and baby Janet, and Obadeo. So what we're asking is for you to help us help the village of Mkyashi to help itself.
So now we're going to get into a little bit more of what are we actually talking about. What is our idea to help? So we've created Tuko Pamoja Mkyashi. The mission of Tuko Pamoja Mkyashi is to collaborate with the people of Mkyashi village to build a world-class eco-lodge dedicated to economic development through job creation, project funding, and social investment. So I'm going to slow that down a little bit and talk about what each of these means. First of all, I want to point out what is an eco-lodge. Now, you've all heard of ecotourism. Ecotourism is tourism that is dedicated to benefiting the environment and the local cultures that it takes place in. An eco-lodge is just any lodging facility that fits into the ecotourism philosophy. So here's what we're actually going to do. We want to build an eco-lodge in Mkyashi village that benefits the local community. And it's going to do so in 3 ways. In the short term, this eco-lodge is going to be bringing in funds from guests that stay in it. Profits and a portion of revenues from the lodge are going to go into this village fund, and villagers can decide how to use this money to fund some of their development projects. Now, a few quick examples that they've already told us that they would really like. The first is a water cistern. What a water cistern does is it can store a huge amount of water for a long period of time. So in Mkyashi, they have a rainy season and a dry season. In the rainy season, they have more water than they know what to do with. In the dry season, there's not enough water for people to have their daily drinking water, water their crops, cook their food, so it's a serious problem. If they could store some of that water from the wet season, then they could have enough water to sustain them throughout the dry season. It doesn't cost a lot to build a cistern, but it costs more than what they have there. In the medium term, this project will provide both employment and training. It's going to provide employment to not only those who work at the eco-lodge, but also those who supply the eco-lodge with any resources, food, construction materials, labor, all of those ancillary things that businesses do. Additionally, we're going to provide training. So anybody who works at this lodge is going to have a basic knowledge of the English language as well as some basic customer service experience. These might seem like really simple things to us, but in Tanzania, not a lot of people actually have those 2 skills. And in Tanzania, tourism makes up the largest portion of their GDP, even ahead of agriculture. So having the skills to work in the tourism industry is a big deal. In the long term, we actually want this lodge to be entirely village owned and operated within the next 5 to 7 years. So we're going to go over and help build this lodge, help get it running, get some of the management down, the practices in place, but eventually we want to hand it over to the village to run on their own. So it will be a totally sustainable source of income for the village that they're making for themselves and can be using for themselves. So there are 3 major benefits to this plan that we would like to point out. First of all, your donations will multiply. Now when you give to a traditional charity or a nonprofit, what happens is they go to you one year and they say, we need $100 to perform whatever wonderful task that charity might be doing. They take your $100 and they go and spend it on a great cause. The next year, they've spent that $100, so they come back to you and they need another $100. And I hope that you give it to them because they're all doing wonderful things. Tuko Pamoja Mkyashi is trying to raise $100,000 once. If we can raise this money, we can build the lodge and get it running all on its own. So this year we raise $100,000. The next year, the lodge actually brings in $50,000. The next year after that, another $50,000. So you can see how instead of having to go back to donors every year, it's actually creating its own money year after year after year. Second of all, the people of Mkyashi get the opportunity to make a living for themselves. There's a lot more dignity in going out and earning your daily bread than in having to depend on the handouts of other people to give you that bread. What we're trying to do here isn't to give a gift to Mkyashi village. We're trying to bring out the gifts that the people of Mkyashi naturally have inside of them. Finally, if you pick us as your charity, we will name a hut after your mascot. If you don't, we will name a hut after your rival.
So finally, what we're asking of you is to help us help the village of Mkyashi to help itself. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to share our dream and our story with you. We encourage you to contact us for more information. Our website is www.mkyashi.org, or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter.